Hey, it's John with Losing It with John, and today is episode number 2 of the podcast, and I have a topic I want to talk about today, and it's really like what it takes to lose more than 60 pounds. Now, why did I pick 60 pounds? What is it that you're going to need to do in order to get yourself there to lose more than that 60 pounds? We're going to talk about that in this episode, so stay tuned. Hi, my name is John Hoff. I'm a personal development and weight loss coach. And on this podcast, I'm here to tell you all your dreams can come true. You just have to have the courage to pursue them and the desire to improve how you think, how you feel, and what you tell that person staring back at you in the mirror. What you're going to do today to make tomorrow one step closer to the life you want to live. No more telling yourself it's too hard. No more telling yourself you just can't do it. Let it be messy. Let it not be perfect. Because there is no such thing. So stop telling yourself you can't do it, because you can. I believe in your power to change. You can manifest anything your heart desires. You just have to know how to direct the energy. Because whatever you believe is what you will receive. And I believe you are beautiful. I believe you can fit into the clothes you want to fit into. And I believe nothing can stop you from losing all the weight you want to lose. So let's talk about it. This is the Losing It with John podcast. All right, so I realized that in my last episode, episode number 1, I talked about in the beginning how I said how much weight did I lose? And I realized after recording it, I actually didn't say the specific number. So maybe in episode 2, I'll reveal that, yeah? I talked about like the struggles that I had with losing weight. I had it for a very long time. I had things that worked, like, I tried the Atkins early on in the 90s and stuff. But anyways, I finally figured it out. Go back, watch or listen to episode number 1. It's on YouTube as well if you want to watch it. And you'll see kind of what I did there. But how much I actually ended up losing was about 60 pounds. So I was about 220 pounds, right around in that area, that I could just, I hovered like a lot of people do. I kind of like hover back and forth, right? You're at about this way, and then you fluctuate maybe 10 pounds. And then you try doing something a little bit better for yourself. You try losing weight, and what happens? You do good for a while, and what? Then you kind of fall back into your old habits, right? So what ultimately got me to lose that 60 pounds, I went from about 220 to down to about 160. And what I ended up doing was I switched to the keto diet. That was kind of like the first thing that I did there. And then over time I realized, geez, I don't want to live keto for the rest of my life. This isn't really enjoyable. I actually like sweet potatoes. I like potatoes and stuff. Now, I don't eat a lot of pasta personally anymore. I don't eat tons of bread. If I do eat bread, it's going to be a little healthier kind of bread, like the Ezekiel bread, sprouted grains. They just they have more vitamins and minerals still in it. They're more nutrient dense because they're sprouted, versus like heavily processed, like a lot of the white breads are and stuff. And like the gluten impact isn't so bad because everybody has a little bit of a reaction to gluten. You might not feel it. And the thing about gluten, by the way, just as a little side note, tangent kind of things, because you might hear online, when you're trying to get healthier and you're trying to lose weight, you see a lot of things out there, right? And one of the things you see is gluten-free diet. Is gluten bad for you? Is it good for you? What's the deal? First of all, let me just say it's a very kind of heated subject that's out there. Gluten. It's very interesting because when people who have like a sensitivity to gluten here in America, they eat something like bread or pasta, okay, contains gluten in it, pizza, whatever. There's people who have either a little bit of a sensitivity where don't feel right. Okay, so a lot of times we think of it like stuff in your stomach, like gastrointestinal or something. Well, then there's the other people who have the actual, celiac disease where they're allergic to it, and that's a serious condition if you have gluten. I used to work in a banquet kitchen, well, I was actually a banquet server, and we had to know somebody had celiac disease. Like, we needed to know that for sure, that nothing in the kitchen could touch their food that was in any way related to gluten. Okay, the table, the utensils, you name it. Now, the people who had sensitivity, okay, there's people who have sensitivity, and they just, like my aunt, for example, she has a gluten sensitivity. She finally figured it out, and when she stopped eating gluten, she just felt better. A lot of these people, what they find is when they travel to another country, like in Europe, they can have things like bread and pasta, and for a lot of the people, I can't say 100% of the people, but I know people who have gone to Europe, had gluten there, perfectly fine there, but here in America, they actually have a sensitivity to it. It's a very interesting thing. There's different regulations that go on in Europe and other countries on what can go in food and what can't go in food, and certain things that need to be on the label. And when it comes to gluten, they just, here in America, it's all about flavor. It's all about money. It's all about the sales. It's all about the bottom line. Big companies that I see, for the most part, really aren't interested in your health. They're more interested in how much money they can make. What's the profit margin? Who's winning? Is Blimpie going to win the sandwich wars, or is Subway going to win the sandwich wars? Is Dunkin' Donuts going to win the sandwich or the donut wars, or is something like Winchell's going to win it, right? Or Krispy Kreme? All those things, they sound great, right? But they're not thinking about your health. They're thinking about their bottom line. And if adding more gluten into the product is going to make it taste better, the consistency is going to be better, the texture is going to be better, trust me, they're going to do it. All right. And it just seems like there's less of that going on in Europe, at least on the surface level. I didn't do the study, but I know that people go there, they don't have as much problems with it. So that's a little, side tangent on gluten. The thing is that everybody has a little bit of a reaction to gluten, okay? And without getting too deep into the science of it, there's gluten causes, it basically stimulates something called zonulin in the gut, okay? That means that you're going to get a little bit of inflammation. Now, how much depends on the different people, and it affects people in different ways. Most people think so, that's kind of gluten on the side, my little side tangent on gluten. Now, let's talk about what it really takes to lose, more than 60 pounds. Like I said, I lost 60 pounds. And the thing is when I lost that 60 pounds, I looked at myself in the mirror and I realized that might be a little bit too much weight that was lost for me. When you lose weight, on the scale, and you see, okay, you were 250 pounds and now you're 240 pounds. Okay, that's weight loss. But let me ask you a question. Does the scale care if that weight comes from the amount of water that you have, or if it's the actual fat loss that you had? Does the scale care if it's how much food is still in your stomach? Or if it's, just for women, that time of the month, and you feel a little bit more bloated, or whatever it might be. Does it care? No, it doesn't care, right? It doesn't care. All it cares about is gravity and what you put on top of that scale. And that's all that it measures. Now, there's fat loss, okay? When it comes to you're losing weight, typically what happens is that you're going to lose two things. You're going to lose fat, okay? So if your fat cells, what I mean when I say you're going to lose fat, I mean technically what you're doing is you're shrinking your fat cells, okay? Your fat cells are going to shrink, so you're going to lose some body fat, but also what you're going to lose two things. You're going to lose your fat cells are going to shrink and your muscle's going to shrink. The scale's going to go down, right? Okay, so let me make this important distinction here. Do we want to lose both fat and muscle, or do we just want to lose the fat but keep the muscle? Keep the muscle, right? Of course, we don't want to lose the muscle. Well, I can talk about how to keep that muscle here in a moment, but what I did was I wasn't thinking about the muscle aspect of things. You see, the keto diet has very specific percentages that it wants you to stay within when you're eating. So it wants you to stay within, like very low carbs. So like 5% of your energy comes from carbs, about 20-ish% comes from protein, and the rest will come from the fat that you eat. For me, that is, the keto diet, although it can help with weight loss, is it really the most effective tool? It definitely is an effective tool, but is it the ideal effective tool? I personally would argue that there could be a little better method. For most people, I can't say everyone in the world because, any good coach, health coach, doctor, name them, the answer is always it depends. Okay, it depends on the person. But I feel that keto doesn't have enough protein in it. I think that we should be eating we should try to offset things by eating a little bit more protein, because as we lose weight, we also lose muscle mass, because as we lose fat, we also lose muscle mass. And we want to keep the muscle mass higher. What I didn't do was low protein, low carbs, and I had a decent amount of fat, which that could also get you into trouble with weight loss because of calories and stuff. For me, for the amount of movement that I was doing in my day, because I was a banquet server, I was moving a lot. That wasn't a problem for me. But I lost too much weight. And then, like I said in episode 1, because I think I mentioned that in episode 1, how I lost too much weight. And then you start getting the other comments. When you have too much weight, people a lot of times will say certain comments that make you feel like that was kind of rude, right? Like, then why? What are you saying? I'm fat? I'm ugly? I'm heavy? I'm not worthy? Are you judging me? Things. But the same is true on the opposite end when you lose too much weight. Then, like I said in episode 1, people start saying, geez, John, I think I need to give you a... It's like that. And I was getting a lot of them. And the fact is, I really did lose too much weight. I was looking a little bit too skinny. So I had to up my protein. I realized then that I needed to eat more protein because I needed to gain the muscle back. I lost the weight and the muscle, and I needed to gain the muscle back. So I ate more protein, which increased how many calories I was eating, because that's important too. I wasn't counting calories, but I was eating more calories because I was eating more protein, more food. And the other thing too is a little bit of weightlifting can help as well. I'm not a big weightlifter, but I do a little bit because I don't want to lose too much muscle mass. Okay, so now 60 pounds. Why am I saying 60 pounds? What is it there? Well, for one, I lost 60 pounds, right? So, I feel confident that I know things that you can do and how to help people to lose that weight as far as the physical things like what to eat and everything like that. I can help and have helped people who have less than 60 pounds to lose. But there's going to be a little bit of a difference here when you get down to, okay, you 20 pounds versus helping someone who needs to lose 100 pounds, let's say. Let's start with the person who needs to lose kind of, a lot more weight, more than 60 pounds. When it comes to losing more than, 60, I just put it at 60. It could be 50, don't hold me. It's not a hard number. It's not written in a book somewhere. It's just a general, when you have more weight you need to lose. So if you need to lose 60, 75, 100, 150, whatever, then that issue a lot of times is going to come down to, now I'm talking about the physical part. We'll talk about mental part here in a minute. But right now we're just talking about the physical, okay? The physical being the things you do in the real 3D world right now is going to be centered around eating less food, okay? It's likely that you're eating and consuming too much food. So what we need to do is figure out how to consume less food. Not easy. There are some simple things to do to help us to consume the less food, but it's not easy to stick to. It's easy to do today maybe, but try doing it for 3 weeks. And if you've been eating a certain way and a certain amount of food, and you've been eating whatever you want, whenever you want, however much you want, for the last 40 years, switching to eating less food to the point where you're going to lose 100 pounds, 150 pounds or something, right? It's going to be difficult to stick with. And you're going to need some guidance and some tools to help you maintain that until it becomes a habit. Okay, so when you have a lot of weight to lose, kind of the biggest thing to be looking at is the consumption of food, how much of the food you're eating. Now, I have designed, when my program, I've designed my program for when I take in new students on how I help them lose weight. It's 2 aspects. One of them is, how do you eat less food and how can we do that in a sustainable way right now? And we do that until it becomes habit. And then we start stacking little bits of habit on top of that. Okay. So we don't do too much at once. And we want to keep it as close to what you're doing now, but we just inch a little bit, and then we inch a little bit, and then we inch a little bit more. And so that way we're not overwhelming you. I'm not overwhelming you with doing too much. Working on things is have, let's say, I'm just going to throw a number out there, 25 pounds to lose. Okay, can I help you lose 25 pounds? Absolutely, I could. But if you were to get into my program and you watch the videos that I have, because I do videos and then I'll do like live calls and how to apply things. That's what coaching is, Teaching is just teaching somebody how to do something. Coaching is to show how to apply it in your life. And the teaching aspect when you come into my program is centered a lot on how to reduce the amount of eating of food that you have when you've been overeating too much. And if you only have like 20 pounds to lose, you're probably not really having a huge struggle at this point with overeating. Maybe you're eating just a little bit too much. Maybe you're eating at the wrong time. Maybe it's just you don't even have to reduce the eating. Perhaps you just need to move a little bit more. So if you just have to move a little more, get 10,000 steps during the day, or you know, clean the house a little more. Don't just, if you find that you're sitting on the couch too much, maybe it's time to get up, do some laundry, clean up the house a little bit, do a little bit of yard work, just a little bit more movement in your day, but eat the same amount of food that you're doing as far as that goes, you know, then you might lose that 20 pounds, or you might lose maybe 10 pounds, and then from just the movement aspect, but then it's just a little bit better on the eating, okay? So instead of eating French fries, maybe you're eating a sweet potato. Or instead of eating hamburgers, you know, or a sandwich, instead of eating a sandwich, let's say, instead of eating a sandwich every day, maybe you eat a sandwich 3 days a week. And, you know, or maybe 4 days a week or something. It's just little tiny tweaks then. It's not as much of the tweaks. Now, I will say this, those last 10 pounds can be a bitch to get off. Can be really hard sometimes. The body, let's call it the universe. The universe likes to play this evil trick on us. It likes to let us get close to where our goal is, and then it says, I'm going to make you really work hard at that last little bit to get that last tiny bit. There's a picture out there that's like a little meme that I've seen before, and it's where like it shows two people kind of digging like a trench underground. So like not a trench, it's supposed to be like they're making a cave or something. He's got a pick, and he's picking forward, he's picking the dirt in front of him, and there's a guy, and he's like inches away. He's dug this long trench underground, and he's inches away, like 2 more hits with the pick, and he'd have like the diamonds on the other side. But he gives up because he's like, it's too hard. I put in all the work. It's never going to happen for me. And he turns around and walks away. Where if he just would have picked just a little bit longer, worked just a little bit harder, he would have had the gold or the diamonds. And so often that happens to us when we have that last 10 pounds to lose. It's like we get so close, but then we kind of give up. But if there's just a little bit more tightening up of something, then we could get there. What I always tell people when they come to that, by the way, if they get to that point where it's like, I can't seem to lose this last 10 pounds, because I've had clients that said that, then you kind of have a couple options there. One of them is, and this is my first thing I say is, well, how would you feel if you don't get those last 10 pounds off? Like, you know, could you live with it? Would you be okay if instead of weighing 140 pounds, you weighed 150 pounds? Would you be okay with that? And if not, then you just got to start tightening up things a little bit more than what you're doing right now. And that might be through the food that you eat. Maybe it's the quality. Maybe it's the consumption. And maybe it's going to the gym. Maybe it's gaining a little bit of muscle, because when you gain muscle, when you lift weights and you gain muscle, the more muscle you have, the higher your metabolic rate will be. And the higher your metabolic rate is, okay, the more calories you burn. All right. Another thing to think about here, if you don't really have a ton of weight to lose, is that sometimes the answer, or let me put it this way, sometimes the problem isn't that you're over consuming food. Sometimes you're like my mother-in-law, where you're under consuming food. You're not eating enough. And that seems very, very backwards at first. Like, how could it be that I'm not losing weight and you're telling me I'm not eating enough food? That doesn't make sense. Well, the fact is, like, take a look at what you're doing. And, you know, if you're like my mother-in-law, I'll give you the example of her. She, she has a certain amount of weight, and she'll wake up in the morning, she'll have some coffee. She really won't eat anything during the day. maybe around 2 p.m., she'll have a very small something to eat, but it's not a lot. She's just not hungry. And then for dinner, they'll go out to dinner maybe because they neither her or her boyfriend like to cook. So they go out to dinner a lot, but they also, they do make things at home. But when they do eat, she kind of eats a little bit and then she's full. She really, doesn't really care to eat a whole lot of food. That's about it. Now, you would think somebody like that would be skin and bones, wouldn't you? But she's not. And she looks for like ways to lose weight and dieting and different diets. And she's been through different doctors and stuff. And now she does have thyroid, a little bit of thyroid issue, which that can affect things as well. But trust me, people who have thyroid conditions can also lose weight. And you might be asking, well, why haven't you, John, been able to help her lose weight? And the fact is, I do talk with her, but I am not her coach. I have given her lots of advice. Sometimes the unfortunate thing is when somebody is not a paying customer, they don't really take your advice seriously, or maybe they don't treat it as important, I should say. She knows what I do, and I've given her free access to my curriculum that I do. But you ask her how many videos she's watched. It's not if any, not a lot, if any. But she'll go out and spend, tons of money on functional medicine doctors or some other weight loss kind of thing. And just imagine, when you get something for free, do you treat it the same way as if you were to give me $20,000 to help you lose weight? How serious would you take the information I'm giving you versus if I charged you $10? Okay, so that's a question to kind of ask yourself there. But anyways, so how is it then by not eating enough food you're not losing weight? It doesn't make sense. Like I said, well, the fact is, here is this person that I just described that is not eating a lot of food, and by all intents and purposes, she should be losing weight. She should not have a lot of body fat on her because she barely eats, yet her weight stays the same. Okay? What we have to remember is that our bodies have energy requirements. The brain requires energy to operate. Digestion requires energy, right? Your eyes require energy, the eye pressure, seeing. How is what you're seeing being transposed into the brain and your thinking and all that? What about your spleen? What about your liver? All these things take energy. Just breathing takes energy. Body heat regulation takes energy. Hair growth, nails growing, all these things take energy, don't they? So the last thing your body's worried about is using energy to lose weight when there's not enough energy to go around just to keep your vital organs working. So it actually looks at, in that case, it actually looks at the weight that you have as being protective, because scarcity is out there. There's not enough food to go around, and you're not living in abundance. You're living in very, very little amount that's out there. Think of like a hunter and gatherer, right? When food is abundant, they're happy. Everything's great. When there's like 2 berries a day that you can eat, that's scarcity. That's freaking you out. Where's your next meal going to come from? That's what we're doing in our body when we don't eat enough food. That typically isn't the situation for somebody who has over 100 pounds to lose. But for somebody who has, maybe 30 pounds to lose, that very well could be one of the scenarios, is that they're just not eating enough food. All right. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. If not, you know where to find me on Instagram. Send me a DM or whatever. Comment on the YouTube video here if you're watching it on YouTube. Now, let's talk about that other thing. What it really takes to lose more than 60 pounds. Okay? So the first thing I already kind of mentioned was we have to look at, well, how much food are you eating? The volume of food likely is going to have to come down. So how do we do that? Because we can force that, right? We can force it. Like today, I'm just going to eat 2 eggs in the morning and some bacon and an avocado, or maybe a little bit of sweet potato or something, whatever, and then for lunch, I'm going to have tuna with no bread, and I'm going to make it a big tuna salad is what I'm going to do. And then for dinner, I'm going to have chicken. I'm going to have, the other half is going to be vegetables and maybe just a little bit of rice or a little bit of potato or something. Wonderful. And I'm not going to snack all day. Okay, great. If I gave you that challenge, you could probably do it. And if I did a 5-day challenge, you could probably muster the willpower to do it. By the end of day 5, though, you probably are going to be hating life, right? Because that's not what you normally eat. That's not the normal amount of food that you eat. If you're used to eating 7 slices of pizza, eating 2 all of a sudden isn't going to do it for you. Are you feeling me on that? Okay, so what we have to do then is what I do inside my program, Powered by Nutrition, is that I help people to put in some parameters that they work within. Because for right now, what we have to do until our hunger hormones, until our hunger cues get into sync, we understand when we are really hungry, when we are really full, then we kind of just have to use a document, a spreadsheet, some kind of tracking, something that you're writing down and monitoring. And you're going to have to work within those parameters. And we do that until those parameters, and they don't have to be strict, okay? I'm just saying it has to be, some kind of plan that we put together, that we follow. And when that version of the plan that you're doing gets easy, okay, then we say, well, what else can I do? What's the next thing that I could do that's just a little bit better than yesterday or a little bit better than last week? And we pencil that in. And then we work within those parameters, okay? And we stick within those until it gets a little easier. And what we're doing here is that we're teaching our body. We're teaching, our metabolism, I always say our body. We're teaching our body that we are not in scarcity mode right now. That we, we do live in abundance. That it's not a big change. Okay, so today I'm not eating a Snickers bar. Okay, that's the change. Well, that's probably not going to throw my body into a whole freeze up scarcity. It's not going to put me in overwhelm. And it's not going to get me thinking like I can't do this because it's too hard or I'm just not I'm not good enough. This is all, too overwhelming. It's too much. No. It's simple little things that we do. Now, what if, life happens out there and somebody comes over and, you had a plan. Like I always go back to this quote, Mike Tyson, the boxer, Mike Tyson. I love this quote. He said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. I love that quote. It's so good, but it's true. Okay. So, you come on and it's like, okay, I'm working with John. John says to, put this kind of little plan together. I'm kind of devising it on my own. So it's something that's going to work for me. And then you do it. And then guess what? Your cousin comes over and says, hey, we're all going out to dinner. Come on, let's go. It's a big party. Come on, tonight we're going out. You're coming with us. I don't care what you say. And you're like, crap. Tonight I was going to eat chicken, some rice, some broccoli, or something like that. You went in it with a plan. You kind of knew what your dessert was going to be. And now you're all going out to Outback for dinner. What are you going to do? Right? That is where, coaching comes into play. Because you need to be able to be a little bit flexible in this. Because being too rigid when you're trying to lose weight leads people to doing the F it eating. Okay? Like, just screw it. I'll just get back to it another time. And so often that other time is like a week later, a month later, right? It's not like, okay, one meal I messed up, or I'm just going to go free for all today. And then, tomorrow, or my next meal really is when it should be, I'm going to get right back to what I was doing. How often does that scenario play out? You totally blow it on a meal, but then your very next meal, you're doing right back on track. And for that whole next week, you're doing right back on track. Now, typically what happens is you do the mess up, and then the next day you beat yourself up because you messed up and you didn't stick to the plan, and you get all frustrated and you start telling yourself how it's too difficult. See, I told you you couldn't do it. I told you so. It's all too difficult. It's just not for me. Dieting is too hard. And then you give up for a while until you get sick and tired of it again. You look in the mirror and then you say, how could I let myself get this far? You keep looking at like your midsection. You look at your neck. You do all the self-evaluating and beating up in the head about the way you feel, the way you look, the way you act, and all those things. And you don't want to take your clothes off in front of your spouse or something because you're embarrassed. You want to hide behind in pictures. You want to be not the person in the front. You want to be kind of behind some people or something. And then you come to that point where you're like, you know what? Forget it. I'm going to do it this time. I got to go back on another diet. And then you try again. And then what happens? We go on repeat. Right? The reason why we go on repeat is because we think that the problem is the food. And we think that because that's what we keep hearing and seeing online from doctors, from other coaches, from people who are talking about healthy eating and stuff, right? You got to eat healthy. But what they're not telling you is that the whole freaking thing is a mental game, okay? It's a mental game. It's not a food game, it's a mental game. You get the mental thing right. You get your mentality right. You start telling yourself the right things. You start planning things properly. You start training your mind to think in a certain way. Not all at once today, but a little over time. And all of a sudden, it will click. And it becomes easy. That's what we want to do. We want to get from right now where it's hard, and we want to get to where it's easy. And in the beginning, this is how the ratio is going to play out, okay? It's going to be, for most people, 90 to 95%. We'll just call it 90 right now. 90-10 rule, okay? Now, you've heard of the 80-20 rule. The 80-20 rule is 80% of the results comes from 20% of the effort, right? So for losing weight in the beginning, when you have, 70 pounds to lose, whatever it might be, 90% of it's going to be a mental game in the beginning, okay? The things you tell yourself, the way that you behave when certain situations happen, what you do when you're bored, what you do when you're stressed, what you do when you're irritated, all right? That all is going to play out in your head on what you're going to do. Yes, physically, spreadsheet, what loses the weight is the food that you eat. How much of it that you're eating and what kind of food it is also plays into a role of it. Yes, that's in a spreadsheet, but you are not a freaking spreadsheet. You are a human. And how well you can stick to eating the right food to make weight loss happen for you is all going to play out in the way you are behaving. And the way you behave is dictated by the way you think. And the way that you think most often is dictated by who you identify. Okay? Example. If you identify yourself as a Christian, then you're probably going to think Christian kind of, let me put it this way, you're going to behave in ways that a Christian might behave, okay? So not perfect, and then when you do things that kind of go against your Christian beliefs, you probably think to yourself, I probably shouldn't have done that, and you start thinking critically, right? You start thinking about, well, what happened there? And the reason why you do that is because you don't identify as that kind of person, okay? You can behave outside of what you identify yourself as, but when you do that, because your identity is a certain way, you start thinking thoughts and you start thinking critically about, well, what happened there? Oh, I shouldn't have done that. How could I do differently and stuff? If so if you're a Christian, you're going to start doing more Christian things, okay? If I were to ask a Christian to go out and really harm somebody, and this is, I'm talking about a devout Christian here, and just go out and really harm somebody, just maliciously, they probably wouldn't do it because it goes against their values, doesn't it? So that same model there is the same model that we have to apply to anything you want to achieve in your life. If the goal is to lose the weight, we can't do it if you still have the identity of the person who eats whatever they want, whenever they want, how much they want, and so on. Okay? You can get yourself to a point where you don't have to have these parameters that you write down and everything. I'm not saying that your life has to be written down on a sheet of paper and planned out every single day all the time. It doesn't have to be like that. I don't plan out what I eat every single day. In the beginning, though, we need to do that because we need to transition the identity of the person that you are now to a new identity of a person who eats in a certain way, thinks about food in a certain way, behaves in a certain way when they get stressed or bored. Does that make sense? So if a Christian is stressed out, a Christian or somebody who's deeply religious, they probably aren't going to go out and harm somebody. The same way, if you identify yourself as a healthy person with a healthy weight and you live a healthy lifestyle, you probably aren't going to go out and binge eat as much, if at all. Why? Because that is not who you are. And to get yourself there, working on the thing up in your head, your brain. If all you do is focus on eating less carbohydrates or eating less food or counting calories or doing intermittent fasting, if that's the only work that you put in, I am telling you, you are going to have a very, very difficult journey ahead of you when it comes to losing weight. A very difficult journey, and it will probably rebound. I believe the statistics are 90% of diets fail because that's what you're doing. You're going on a diet and you're trying to stick to a diet. But that's not who you are, okay? You're not a keto person. Some people are. Maria Emmerich, she's a keto person. Awesome. She identifies herself as somebody who eats keto, loves keto, and I think she even does carnivore to some extent. If you don't have that same identity that she has, you're going to struggle on keto. Does that make sense? The same thing with going to the gym and counting calories. If you're not that person, if you don't identify as that person, you're not going to do those things for very long. Rebound. All right. So I think I said a what if a while back. What if your cousin comes and takes you all out to dinner and everything? Okay, here's how I would handle that. The way I would handle that, now the way I handle it now, handled it when I'm trying to lose weight, or what I tell my clients when they're trying to lose weight is a little bit different, right? I'm in a little different place than someone who's actively trying to lose weight and change their habits and behaviors and values and things like that around food. What I tell my clients is simple. Just keep this very simple. You have two options. One, just do whatever you want. And the very next meal, get right back to what you were doing. And don't beat yourself up about it. You have to give yourself the freedom to do this. That's probably the lesser option. That would be the plan A, the one you really should strive for, that I would suggest, but everybody is, you're free to do what you want. All I can do is be a coach and provide guidance. Plan A would be to try to eat as close to what you were going to do anyways. So if you plan that was, I think I said like chicken, broccoli, sweet potato, what else might you have? Mushroom chicken, or chicken piccata or something like that, right? Then when you go out to dinner, try to eat something that's relatively close to that. And, maybe it's not chicken, maybe it's pork chop or something. Maybe it's lamb. Maybe instead of a sweet potato, you get a regular potato. Try not to go way too crazy. Just try to keep it simple, or an alternative, because I like to also know in general what are some meals that they like to make. Okay. Hey, I also like salmon. All right, perfect. Is there a salmon? And like we go to BJ's restaurant, and when we go to BJ's restaurant, Old John, okay, I call him Little Johnny. Old John would have got the big pizza, the big deep dish pizza back then. Now they have a blackened salmon with rice and broccoli. I get that, and I'm happy. It tastes good. Okay, so that's what I usually suggest people to do, is to try to eat close to what they were already going to do. All right. Now here's the good news is I said it's 90% mental, 10% physical. So right now, when you're first trying to lose weight, about 10% of the things that you do, okay, is going to produce 90% of the leaps that you're going to do forward. Okay, and that 10%, that's the question. What is that 10% that we're doing? That is the question, okay? Well, that's why I have a course. That's why I have a coaching program powered by nutrition, okay? I help people with that 10%. But I can tell you that is going to be somewhere in the realm of, you guessed it probably by now, mental things, okay? Personal development things, not eat less carbs. The biggest strides you can make in the beginning is going to be how you behave and how you act around situations and the food that you're around and stuff. Okay. Then the great thing is, as you slowly move and inch your identity and who you are and how you behave in certain situations and what you do, as you inch it closer and closer and closer to that healthier version of you that you see yourself as, it's not so much 90. It will start going a little more to 80-20, okay? And then maybe it goes like 60-40, and then maybe even 50-50. So if I was to say where I'm at right now, it's kind of a 50-50 thing. I don't really have to think much about the food that I'm eating or the situations I'm in, or when I get stressed or something. I don't particularly go to food as a mechanism to deal with my emotional issues or my coping issues or something. A lot of people greatly do when they're first starting to lose weight, when they first want to lose weight. Food is very much a coping system, which is why we don't want to change your food too much in the beginning. Unlike other diets that just expect you to rip the Band-Aid off and just, that's what you do. Not everybody's the same. But some people, everyone's different. Some people, they'll lose the weight that they want. They'll get to the healthy weight that they want. They put in the work to change a little bit, but that food thing to be a coping mechanism can still be there in their mind. The good news is it turns down more into a whisper, okay? It gets easier to kind of ignore and move aside. And hopefully you have learned ways to deal with it, okay? All right, so that about does it for today's episode. I hope that got you thinking a little bit on if you're trying to lose weight, where your kind of starting point is. All right. Now, if you would like to learn a little bit more from me, if you've got like 60 or more pounds to lose, ballpark, okay? If it's 50, it's 50, whatever. But if you do have some weight that you'd like to lose and you'd like to learn a little bit more from me, then head over to my website, losingitwithjohn.com, losingitwithjohn.com. I'm losing it because of all the junk that you see on the TV, then the things that you hear online about how to lose weight. It just gets me crazy. And then also losing it because, losing the weight, right? I want to lose it. So I'm losing it both in the head and in the body. But go to losingitwithjohn.com. And if you would like to take, I'll free like mini course, or it might be a webinar or something, go to losingitwithjohn.com / what will we call it? Free, okay? /free. And there I will have something for you to help you along the way to lose weight. Now, what it is, that's prize, isn't it? Go to losingitwithjohn.com / free, and I'll have something there that will be no cost to you, but I'm going to give you a little something extra to help you in your journey with losing weight. All right. So I'll see you next time. Don't forget, send me a DM on Instagram. Let me know what you thought about this episode. Let me know what else you would like to hear. I'll talk about it on the podcast here. And if you're on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe, because I'm also posting these onto YouTube as well. They'll be right now I'm doing them in black and white, I guess, so they stick out, or I don't know, maybe I just look a little cooler when I'm in black and white. All right, I hope you have a great day. I'll talk to you next time.